14 centuries ago. In the endless deserts of Arabia, a storm was brewing, not of sand, but of faith, courage, and destiny. For years, the believers of Medina had lived under pressure, mocked, chased, and threatened by those who once called them family. But on that day, the 17th of Ramadan, in the second year after Hijrah, the test of all tests arrived. The Prophet Muhammad received news. A massive Quraysh army, 1,000 strong, was marching toward them. The Muslims, only 3 to 13, no heavy armor, no horses for battle, just faith, unity, and unshakable trust in Allah. When the Prophet heard of the Quraysh advance, he gathered his companions. Among them were young men, barely in their 20s, and elders whose hearts were steady as mountains. He looked upon them and said, "Give me your opinion." "O people," one by one voices rose, filled with loyalty and love. From the Muhajirun came Abu Bakr, R.A., and Umar, R.A., pledging their lives. Then came Sa'd ibn Mu'ad, Ra, the voice of the Ansar. His words echoed through the camp. "O Messenger of Allah, we have believed in you, we have pledged to you. March where you wish. By Allah, if you were to cross the sea, we would follow you." Tears filled the Prophet's eyes. The storm was coming, but the believers stood unshaken. That night, while the world slept, the desert was silent. Except for whispers of prayer, one man stood beneath the stars, his hands raised high, tears flowing down his blessed face. He was not asking for power, nor wealth, but for victory, not for himself, but for the message of truth. That man was Muhammad. Dawn broke over Badr. A faint mist lay across the valley, and the air was heavy, as if the earth itself knew that history was about to change forever. The Prophet stood quietly, watching his companions prepare. Only 313 stood before him, their weapons few, their armor light, but their faith unshakable. Across the valley, the Quraysh army stretched like a wave of iron, 1,000 men strong, with horses, camels, and shining blades. They laughed when they saw the Muslims' small numbers, but the Prophet raised his hand toward the sky and whispered, "O Allah, if this small group is destroyed today, no one will remain to worship you." Then, as if the heavens answered, a wind began to stir, soft at first, then growing stronger. The first to step forward was a brave warrior named Ubaidah ibn al-Harith, Ray, followed by Hamza ibn Abdul Muttalib, R.A., and Ali ibn Abi Talib, R.A., 3 lions of Islam. From the Quraysh came 3 champions, Utbah, Shayba, and Walid ibn Utbah. The desert fell silent. The duels began. Swords flashed. Shields clashed. And within moments, the sand was stained with the blood of arrogance. Victory in the duels belonged to the believers. But this was only the beginning. Soon both armies roared and charged. The air filled with cries of Allahu Akbar and the sound of steel striking steel. The Prophet moved behind the lines, raising his hands in prayer again and again. His cloak slipping from his shoulders, Abu Bakr, R.A., stood beside him, placing it back gently, whispering, "O Messenger of Allah, enough, your Lord will fulfill his promise." And then, from the unseen world, help arrived. The Quran would later record it. "When you sought help of your Lord, and he answered you, indeed I will reinforce you with 1,000 angels following one another." Surah Al-Anfal 8:9. The believers felt it, a strength not of this world. The enemies saw it, faces they did not recognize, forces they could not comprehend. By midday, the mighty Quraysh army was breaking. Their commanders fell, their pride shattered. The Muslims, outnumbered 3 to 1, stood victorious. The Valley of Badr became the Valley of Truth. A small army, armed only with faith, had changed the course of history forever. The battlefield grew silent. Only the wind whispered through the dunes of Badr, where moments ago swords had clashed and hearts had trembled. Now there was only stillness. The believers stood breathless, their eyes filled with tears, not of pride, but of gratitude. They had witnessed what faith alone could do. Against an army 3 times their size, they had triumphed. not by power, but by the help of Allah. The Prophet looked upon the fallen enemies. Many were faces he had once known in Makkah, men who had mocked him, hurt his followers, and driven them from their homes, yet he did not smile. Instead, his eyes filled with mercy. He said softly, "They opposed the truth until the very end. But they too were sons of Adam." He ordered that their bodies be buried in the sands of Badr, for even those who fought against the truth were still part of humanity. Then the prisoners of war were brought before him. Among them stood Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib, his own uncle, once an enemy, now a captive. The companions waited to see what the Prophet would do. Would he punish them? Would he take revenge? But the messenger of mercy taught the world a lesson that day. He said, "Treat them with kindness. Feed them what you eat and clothe them as you clothe yourselves." Even the prisoners of war could not believe it. They whispered among themselves, "What kind of man is this who shows mercy to those who came to kill him?" That night, the camp of the believers glowed not with torches, but with hearts shining in gratitude. The Prophet stood alone under the stars, his hands raised to the sky. "O Allah, all victory is yours. You have honored your promise. Make us grateful servants, not arrogant victors." And from the heavens, tranquility descended, the peace that only Allah can send to those who fought for His name and stayed humble in success. That victory at Badr was not just a military triumph. It was a declaration to all of humanity that faith, when pure and patient, can overcome any force, that mercy is mightier than revenge, and that truth, though tested by every storm, always rises again. The dawn after Badr was unlike any other. The desert air was calm, but every heart among the believers beat with a new kind of strength. For the first time, the oppressed had become victorious. The humble had risen above the mighty, and the name of Allah had been honored across the sands of Arabia. But the victory was not just on the battlefield. It was a victory of the soul, of patience over anger, of faith over fear, and of mercy over hatred. In Medina, the believers returned as heroes, yet their prophet reminded them, "Do not say, 'We have won.' Say, 'Allah has granted us victory.'" He taught them that true success was not in the sword, but in the heart that remains humble after triumph. The Battle of Badr became a sign for generations, a story whispered by the winds of the desert to remind all who struggle for truth. That even when you are few and the world stands against you, Allah is enough. When despair surrounds you, remember Badr. When you feel powerless, remember those 313 believers who stood with unwavering faith and saw angels descend to help them. And when victory comes your way, remember what the Prophet taught, that power is a test, and gratitude is the key to keep it. Badr was not just a battle. It was a rebirth of courage, a proof of divine help, and a message of hope for every believer till the end of time. The Quran would later echo this truth. And already had Allah given you victory at Badr while you were few in number. So fear Allah that you may be grateful. Surah Al-Imran 323. To this day, the sands of Badr remain silent witnesses, but if they could speak, they would tell you faith, patience, and trust in Allah can move mountains and split seas. This was the legacy of Badr, a story of faith that changed history forever. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to Islamic Tales Hub, where forgotten stories of courage, mercy, and faith come alive once again. Every like, comment, and share helps this message reach more hearts and earns you reward, inshaAllah. Until next time, may Allah keep your heart strong, your faith unshaken, and your soul guided.